They were poor enough to skip meals, but rich enough to never stop holding hands. Before starting the story, please subscribe and like the video, and listen through end for chill. In America, people talk a lot about dreams. Big houses, fast cars, white fences, college funds, retirement plans, freedom. But nobody really talks about the kind of life where you count pennies at the grocery store, where you pretend not to be hungry so your spouse can eat, where you smile in public and cry silently at night because you don't know how you're going to make rent. That was our life. My name is Daniel Carter, and my wife's name is Emily. We weren't lazy, we weren't reckless, we didn't waste money or chase shortcuts. We worked. God knows we worked. We were just poor. Our apartment was a one-bedroom unit above a laundromat in a small Ohio town. The walls were thin, the carpet smelled like old soap and regret, and the heater only worked if you kicked it twice and prayed. Rent was $780 a month, cheap by American standards, but heavy when your bank account never crossed 4 digits. The windows rattled in winter, the air conditioner broke every summer, and every night the noise of spinning dryers downstairs sounded like the clock ticking on our failures. Still, Emily tried to make it feel like home. She taped handwritten quotes on the fridge, she folded old blankets into neat piles, she watered a dying plant she refused to give up on. "This one's a fighter," she'd say. I always wondered if she was talking about the plants or us. I worked construction during the day and stocked shelves at a grocery store at night. My hands were always cracked. My back always hurt. My body felt older than my age. Emily worked as a daycare assistant. She loved the kids, but the pay was brutal. $11.25 an hour, no benefits, no paid sick days. Some weeks, our schedules barely overlapped. I'd leave before sunrise, she'd come home after dark. We passed each other like ghosts, exhausted smiles, quick hugs, whispered I love yous before collapsing into sleep. Sometimes I'd wake up at 3 a.m. and hear her crying quietly in the bathroom. She never wanted me to hear it. Grocery shopping was the hardest part. We stood in the aisles with calculators, arguing silently with prices. Meat was a luxury. Fresh fruit was occasional. Brand names were jokes. Emily always picked cheaper items for herself. "I'm not that hungry," she'd say. But I noticed her plate was always smaller than mine. One night, I caught her scraping leftovers into my container and pretending she'd already eaten. I didn't say anything. I just hugged her until she went still in my arms. Every month felt like drowning. Rent, electric, phone, car insurance, gas, student loans we couldn't escape. We had a single car, a 2006 Toyota with 210,000 miles. The check engine light never turned off. It felt like a thread. When the electric bill came late one winter, the power shut off for 12 hours. We sat in the dark, wrapped in blankets, eating peanut butter sandwiches by candlelight. Emily rested her head on my shoulder and whispered, "We're not failures, right?" I swallowed hard. No, just early in the story. The hardest part wasn't hunger. It was shame. Watching friends post vacation photos, baby announcements, new houses, family asking, "So when are you two upgrading?" Smiling and nodding when coworkers talked about investments and promotions. I stopped going to gatherings. Emily stopped calling friends. We didn't want pity. We just wanted peace. One night, after a 14-hour shift, I came home to find Emily sitting on the floor with unpaid bills spread around her. She looked smaller than I'd ever seen her. "I don't think I can do this anymore," she said. Not angry, not dramatic, just tired. I sat beside her and felt something crack inside my chest. "I feel like I'm failing you," I said. She looked at me with tears in her eyes. "No," she whispered. "You're the only thing that hasn't failed me." We cried together on that floor for a long time. That night, we promised something important. No matter how broke we would never turn against each other. When you're poor, joy comes in small pieces. Shared coffee from one mug, free concerts at the park, handwritten notes tucked into lunch bags, Sunday mornings sleeping in. Emily started reading library books aloud to me at night because we couldn't afford streaming services. Her voice became my favorite sound. Sometimes that was enough. One afternoon, Emily came home holding an envelope shaking. She'd applied for a community college program 2 years earlier, a nursing bridge program she thought she'd never afford. She'd been accepted, with partial financial aid. It wasn't a miracle, it wasn't instant success, but it was hope. We celebrated with dollar menu burgers and tears. Life didn't suddenly get easy. I worked more hours, Emily studied late into the night. We were more tired than ever. But now the exhaustion had a direction. Some nights she fell asleep at the table with textbooks open. I covered her with a blanket and kissed her forehead. "This is temporary," I whispered. And for the first time, I believed it. We didn't escape poverty overnight, but we survived it together. Years later, we still remember that apartment above the laundromat, the candles, the cold nights, the quiet sacrifices. We remember choosing love when money was gone. And that's why, no matter what comes next, I know something for sure. We were poor, we were tired, we were almost broken, but we never lost each other, and that made us rich in ways money never could. Hope is expensive when you're poor. Emily's acceptance letter didn't erase our reality. Tuition still loomed. Books cost hundreds. Gas prices climbed. My body felt like it was being borrowed by exhaustion. I took on weekend demolition work. Cash jobs, no benefits, no guarantees. Some nights I came home with drywall dust in my hair and cuts on my hands that burned when I washed them. Emily noticed everything. "You don't have to do this, though," she said once, wrapping my knuckles with bandages. "I do, because one day you won't have to." She cried quietly and kissed my hands like they were fragile glass. The Toyota died on a Tuesday morning. No warning, no mercy, just smoke, a shudder, and silence in the middle of an intersection. I pushed it to the side while drivers honked, irritation spilling out of warm cars with full gas tanks and working lives. The mechanic didn't even pretend to soften the blow. He said, "Transmission's gone, not worth fixing." We didn't have savings, we didn't have credit. We had bus schedules taped to the fridge by nightfall. Emily's commute doubled, mine tripled. Winter came early that year, and waiting for buses in the dark felt like punishment for a crime we didn't commit. But we adjusted, because that's what poor people learn to do. There's a version of America that never shows up in commercials. It's the America of overworked couples eating ramen at midnight, of people choosing between prescriptions and groceries, of quiet panic attacks in bathroom stalls during lunch breaks. We lived there. Emily once said, "I feel invisible." I knew what she meant. No one notices you when you're barely surviving. You don't complain loudly enough. You don't break dramatically. You just endure. And endurance doesn't trend. Emily's first semester was brutal. Clinical hours, exams, papers, anxiety. She doubted herself constantly. "I don't belong there," she said one night. "Everyone else seems smarter, richer, more prepared." I reminded her of the nights she rocked crying toddlers at daycare, the patience she had, the strength she didn't see. "You belong anywhere you decide to stay," I told her. Still, there were nights she stared at the wall, hollow-eyed, whispering, "What if I fail?" And I'd whisper back, "Then we try again." We never said the word hunger out loud, but it lived with us, in skipped meals and watered-down soup, and Emily insisting she already ate at school. One night, I found her eating plain rice in the dark. No butter, no seasoning, just survival. I felt rage, not at her, but at a system that made love feel like a liability. That night, I applied for every assistance program I could find. Pride was a luxury we couldn't afford anymore. I broke in the break room at the grocery store. A customer yelled at me over the price of eggs. My manager sighed like I was an inconvenience. My paycheck notification buzzed, lower than expected. Something inside me snapped. I locked myself in the bathroom and cried like a child. Not quiet tears, ugly ones. When I got home, Emily knew immediately. She didn't ask questions, she just held me. That night, for the first time, she was the strong one, and I let her be. Emily passed her hardest exam by 2 points. 2. She ran into the apartment laughing and crying at the same time. We celebrated with cheap pizza and soda. We danced in the kitchen like we had won the lottery. For one night, poverty loosened its grip. For one night, we felt normal. Hard times filter people out of your life. Friends stopped calling when we couldn't afford dinners. Family grew impatient with our slow progress. One relative said, "Maybe you should have chosen a different path." Emily nodded politely, but later she whispered, "They don't see us." And she was right. They didn't see the nights, the fear, the effort. They only saw outcomes. Emily graduated on a humid May morning. She wore a borrowed gown. We couldn't afford photos. Her parents couldn't make it. But when she walked across that stage, I cried harder than I'd ever had because I knew what it cost. Every skipped meal, every doubt, every tear. She looked at me in the crowd and mouthed out, "We did it." And she was right. Emily's first nursing job didn't make us rich, but it changed the air. Bills got paid on time. Groceries included fresh fruit. The lights stayed on. We bought a used car, nothing fancy, but it ran. That first night after her paycheck cleared, we sat on the couch and did nothing. No panic, no calculations, just silence and relief. Even now, we remember. We don't waste food. We don't mock struggle. We don't forget the feeling of being one emergency away from disaster. Emily still waters plants like they're fighters. I still save spare change because poverty leaves marks, but it also teaches gratitude. Love isn't romance. It's patience when there's nothing left to give. It's staying when leaving would be easier. It's choosing each other when the world makes no promises. We were poor, but we were never alone. And in a country that often measures worth by wealth, that was our quiet rebellion. If you're reading this while struggling, know this: being poor does not make you weak. Being tired does not make you a failure. And loving someone through hardship makes you stronger than you know. We didn't win the American dream. We survived the American reality. And that, sometimes, is the bravest thing of all. Surviving poverty doesn't mean it leaves you when the bills finally get paid. It lingers. Even after Emily started working full-time, I still woke up in the middle of the night with my heart racing, convinced we'd missed a payment or lost everything again. I checked the bank app obsessively. I saved receipts. I replayed worst-case scenarios in my head like they were warnings meant to keep us alive. Emily noticed. "You don't have to be on guard all the time anymore," she said gently, but I didn't know how to turn it off. Poverty trains you to expect loss, to prepare for disappointment, to never fully relax. For the first time in our marriage, Emily was the primary earner. She never made me feel small about it, but I felt it anyway. After years of carrying the financial weight, it was strange watching her come home in scrubs while I worked fewer hours, my body finally demanding mercy. One evening, I apologized out of nowhere for not doing enough. She stopped what she was doing and looked at me like I'd said something absurd. "You carried us when I couldn't," she said. "Now let me carry you." I didn't realize how badly I needed to hear that. Stability brought an unexpected emotion: guilt. We walked past homeless people on the way to dinner. We overheard coworkers complain about tight budgets while holding $7 coffees. Emily and I exchanged looks we didn't need words for. We knew what tight really meant. We started leaving extra tips, donating quietly, packing food bags for shelters, not because we felt generous, but because we remembered being unseen. One night, Emily came home shaken. A patient had died during her shift. She sat on the edge of the bed, staring at her hands like they belonged to someone else. "I couldn't save him," she whispered. I held her the same way she had held me on the kitchen floor years earlier. I said, "You showed up. That matters." Poverty had taught us how fragile life was. Nursing made it impossible to forget. We moved out of the laundromat apartment on a cloudy afternoon. No celebration, no big speech, just boxes, sweat, and silence. Before locking the door, Emily stood in the empty living room and touched the wall where we'd once taped quotes. "This place almost broke us," she said, but it also proved we wouldn't break. We left the keys on the counter and didn't look back. Our new place wasn't fancy, just clean, quiet, and safe. But the first night there, we slept like people who weren't afraid of tomorrow. We cooked dinner without counting. We laughed without tension. We planned a week ahead without panic. That felt like wealth. Even years later, certain things still trigger us. A broken appliance, a medical bill, a late paycheck. Emily still hoards candles. I still keep cash hidden in old books. We don't judge those habits. They kept us alive once. We learned that love isn't tested in comfort. It's tested in lack. We learned that survival is quieter than success. And we learned that some marriages don't break under pressure. They fuse. We weren't lucky. We were loyal. If your life feels small right now, if your effort feels invisible, if love is the only thing you have left, hold on to it. Money comes and goes, but someone choosing you in the worst season of your life, that stays. We don't tell our story often, but when we do, it isn't for sympathy. It's for the people sitting in the dark, eating quiet meals, wondering if it ever gets better. Sometimes it doesn't get easier. Sometimes you just get stronger together. And sometimes that's enough. If that story gave you chill, drop a like, subscribe, and comment so I know you made it to the end. I've got another one. See you then.